Give me some idea. What should somebody look for as far as an illness?
Well, again, it depends on the disease. With Lyme disease in particular, there's a characteristic rash. We call it a bullseye rash, so it's a red rash with a clearing in the middle. The unfortunate part of that is not everybody gets that rash. A lot of the other symptoms are, kind of general malaise, so feeling bad, fever, against Rocky Mountain spotted fever or spotted fever rickettsiosis does cause a rash illness. But some of these diseases cause, again, achiness and fever and just generally not feeling well.
Are these diseases that a doctor will readily recognize?
I think that that's a difficult question to answer. I think that we, again, try to do our best to make the information available that we do have tick-borne diseases in Kansas. I do think it's important for people, if they're ill, that they are open with their healthcare provider and explain to them kind of what their habits, their activities are, and if they've been in a wooded area or exposed to ticks in other ways, or if they recall a history of having a tick bite. Again, not everybody can remember that, but they make sure that they tell their physician that. Again, I think the main thing is that people understand that with warmer weather, there is a likelihood of these tick-borne illnesses becoming more prevalent, and that people need to take appropriate precautions if they're going to be out in wooded areas or other places where ticks can be present.
So, how do we go about protecting ourselves and our animals from ticks and the diseases they carry? Well, Michael Dryden, who is a veterinarian, starts with our pets.
The first thing we need to think about, and I always recommend this, is take your animal to a veterinarian and talk to your veterinarian about what is the most appropriate tick product. And we do this for a variety of reasons. Number one, not every tick product is the same everywhere, because we are seeing some differences in how different ticks respond to different compounds. Because again, we're not talking about one tick; we're talking about different tick species out there, and so there are some differences there. The other thing is that we have some topical products and some new oral products, believe it or not, for ticks. You can give animals, and your veterinarian can talk to you about what products those are. Some of these new products are prescription only. They're brand new, recently regulated by the FDA, and they're prescription only, so you can only get them from your vet. So you need to talk to them about it. You got to make sure that your animal is going to be able to tolerate these products well. So really, you need to talk to your veterinarian. And the other thing is that new products are coming down the line all the time. In fact, at least 2 brand new products were just launched in the last couple months. And so new products are coming on the market. And so your veterinarian is going to be hopefully up to date on what's happening and can basically educate you about what's the best thing to do to put on your animal or in your animal, again, some of these are oral, to protect them from ticks and tick-transmitted diseases. So the recommendation I will make first and foremost is talk to your veterinarian and get your animal on one of these products. And I will tell you today, particularly if we're talking about central and eastern Kansas, your dog, cat needs to be on one of these products year round and never take them off because we are seeing ticks 9, 10, 11 months out of the year anymore. January is kind of a free month for us, anymore. But other than that, I can't guarantee you're not going to have a tick on a dog in January. I mean, it's early January, December, and I can't guarantee it's not going to happen in even mid to latter part of February. Now, this last winter, we had a winter for the first time in a while, and we didn't see many ticks until almost March. But you go back a couple of years before that, we were seeing ticks in early January, and even into February. So just go year round.
Can I spray my yard? Does that do any good?
It actually does. Now, for human protection, there's a few things we can do. The first thing is we need to look. There's some common insect repellents out there. I've been a fan of DEET, which is if you look at the labels, DEET, capital letters on a lot of these insect repellent products. It's a very, very effective repellent. It does a good job of protecting us from these ticks, but nothing's perfect. And you also have to be careful. Again, I'm a father. I've also got a granddaughter, and you got to be very careful. We don't want to put too much repellent on the skin of children, so be a little cautious with that. And clearly, it's better to put them on their clothes. The other thing it's been around for a few years now is you can actually have your clothes impregnated with a compound called permethrin. You can go to a store and like in fact right here in Manhattan, I actually found it in Dick's Sporting Goods, believe it or not. It's a permethrin impregnate spray that you spray your clothes and you let it dry on your clothes overnight, and then it actually will keep ticks off. And there's various formulations that you can find it in various stores around. And so you just follow the label directions, because you can't put it on your skin, and you can't put it on your clothes and put the clothes on immediately, because you don't want wet chemical on. It needs to dry. So you've got to follow the label recommendations. In addition, there are various companies out there, you can find them on the internet, where you can actually get your clothes and send them off, and they'll impregnate them with permethrin and send them back to you. And some of those services, they guarantee to last up to 50 washings. And many people send their kids off to camp, if you will, often have their clothes impregnated with permethrin from one of these professional services. You can even buy permethrin impregnated clothing that people sell, like Orvis is a company that actually sells basically hunting clothes, things like that, outdoors clothes that are already impregnated. So there are various things you can do to do this, and you can find these resources online. I've got a good friend at the University of Rhode Island, Dr. Tom Mather, who's got a great website that I'd like to talk about. It's called Tick Encounters. Remarkable website. So he's a professor at University of Rhode Island, and he's actually got a lot of these resources and links right on his website, and I send a lot of people to his website. And then the other question you ask is, what about your yard? Well, there are some products. In fact, there's one that's called Bear Complete Insect Killer that you find in a lot of stores around. And it comes as a concentrate or hose-in spray, and it contains a compound called cyfluthrin, and this is EPA registered for yard tick control. And what we do is generally you're going to spray the shrubs, under the bushes, around the edge of your property. Just follow the label recommendations on the product that you would buy, and that's critical with any insecticide. Always follow label recommendations provided by the EPA and whatever company makes that product. Spray the product around, let it dry before you allow the pets or the kids back have access to that area. That's really important. Here's the other thing I want to make sure we mention. We're not going out in the middle of our yard and spraying our grass for ticks. That's not where they're at. They're along the edges of the property, under the shrubs, under the bushes, and the tall weeds. That's generally where these ticks are residing. And in fact, if you look at the data, they're generally going to tell you you're going to spray up into the foliage, up into under the weeds of shrubs and bushes, maybe out 3 feet into your yard, and then back into that foliage. So you're not going to spray around all the grassy areas. But the key is follow the manufacturers and EPA recommendations how the product is to be applied, and clearly do not let animals or children back into that area until that product is dried. And this is all in the label. Or you can hire a professional exterminator who will come and treat your yards. And there are lawn services that will do this for ticks today. So, but I treat my yard, around the edge of my property for ticks. I clearly do this. But again, I always follow the manufacturer's recommendations on the label.
So you work with this day in and day out. Do you worry about ticks?
Yes, I do. And I don't have an irrational worry. I protect myself. I buy the product and I spray the clothes that I go when I do tick work. I spray them with permethrin. And so my shoes, my socks, and my pants are impregnated with permethrin. And I just follow the label on the can, and that's what I do. I was out in the field yesterday down in southeast Kansas on a consultation tick project. And the night before, I hung my clothes up in the garage and I sprayed them. So I don't have an irrational fear, but I go out among ticks all the time, and I'm going to protect myself from tick exposure as much as possible. And then when I got home last night, went in the bathroom, turned the lights on, and basically did a tick check and see if I'd missed anything. Basically, I think it's just a rational thing that we do in this day and age with the tick numbers we deal with. Just a little personal protection, we're fine. So, do I have concerns? Yes, but I protect myself, and I go out amongst them almost every day.
Why do you worry about ticks and not fleas?
The primary reason is the diseases that they transmit. My concern is I don't want to get a tick-transmitted disease. I don't want to get one of those diseases. And I know that if I protect myself from tick exposure, and if I check myself over and I can get a tick off within a few hours, I'm not going to get one of those diseases. So to me, it's just a common rational thing that we do today.
One last question here. How bad are the ticks this year?
They're bad, but they're not as bad as they were last year. And I think a lot has to do with we had a long, protracted winter, and that tends to slow these tick numbers down. So it's bad, but in my estimation right now, it's not quite as bad as it was last year. But here's the thing: is that's going to change year to year to year. I mean, I'm not Nostradamus; I can't predict what's going to happen. Some years are worse than others. There's been a general upward trend for the last 25 years. If you want to draw a trend line, they seem to be getting worse over time, and I think that's pretty true. And that's numbers and densities and diseases. But year to year, we see huge fluctuations year to year, as climatic conditions can basically dampen tick populations from time to time, and it clearly it appears to have happened this year. But here's the interesting thing: is that can be very, very localized. So I think overall tick numbers are down, but there can clearly be localized areas that tick numbers can be staggering even now, because local climatic conditions drive this. Temperature, humidity, snow cover, various things like that have a great impact upon seasonal, even month-to-month tick populations.
On today's Perspective program, a look at the dangers presented by tick-borne illnesses. And while the dangers are very real, both of today's guests says those dangers can be mitigated with a little planning and caution. With most of the summer ahead of us, there is little need to let fear rule the day. My guests have been Michael Dryden and Charles Hunt. Dryden is one of the world's foremost experts on ticks and a distinguished professor of diagnostic medicine and pathobiology in the College of Veterinary Medicine at Kansas State University. And Hunt is the state epidemiologist with the Kansas Department of Health. Perspective is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Richard Baker, and this is the K-State Radio Network.